Which means you're gonna post every 5 minutes about it every Saturday morning.
Yeah, right? Honestly, it's a fucking disgrace, mate. The way that the FIA has it's made a total mockery. Maybe that's a little too working class of a extreme accent.
It's Alex.
On the chat, new 202 Fulton Street bid business partner just dropped on the way here. Only 4 doors down from Barclay's Pizza and Pasta.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, there's an honest to God like adult video store that opened like this week
on Fulton.
On Fulton.
I said that like 2 seconds ago.
Romance Depot.
Right by
Fulton,
you.
Washington.
Depot.
It looks straight out of Central Casting. It's like real ski.
Romance Depot is like I like fuck with that name.
It's across the street from where Ben lives. I think it's like one of the biggest adult like.
That's when I first
stores.
That's when I first saw it. I was walking.
It's a chain.
I was walking.
That makes more sense.
I was walking with Emily to go to Ben's, and then I looked across the street. It's just like, what the fuck is this? Because it's right next to Sisters. Like
it's like the midway point between all
very
the
different
Brooklyn
vibe.
Contingents apartments. Yeah,
It's I
kind of like the vibe of it just like being on like kind of Main Street Brooklyn.
Downtown Brooklyn gets more and more like Manhattan every day. 6th Avenue on your block.
the dream of the 90s of Times Square is alive in Brooklyn.
Right.
It's like,
Or I guess earlier in the 90s, whatever.
The dream of 2021 or 2022.
Yeah. You know what? Eric
South
Adams
Midtown.
said that we were going to start winning again.
I live in the Tenderloin district, and it still has its heart. So.
this is how he achieves a healthier, longer solitary confinement.
Oh, you had to make it. You had to bring it home there. You made it a little too real.
Well, I'm glad we got to swing them as a partner or sponsor.
Yeah, they just opened, and we already signed them to a binding contract.
That's right. If you need to get a Tenga egg, get it 20% off at romancedepot.com.
I don't even know what that is. Wow.
202.com.
I mean, Peaches handles the partnership.
Yeah. He's our
partnerships director.
The Marc de Grand Prix of View from 202, as we famously say.
Which is why we have the largest in-person attendance of any RBNY podcast.
Yeah, that's true. When we won the JD Power Award,
simply by having more hosts than all the other podcasts.
Best fan atmosphere.
I don't know. I think Energy Drink Soccer Show wins for most hosts.
Guests or hosts?
Oh, good point. Good point. There's only one true host of that show. Sorry. But I was only across the street, but it looked like from across the street, I was like, oh my God, it looks like that place has VHS tapes in it. And, if a place has VHS tapes in it, it's for real. But
that's like when you go into like a little diner that has one of the like tiny marquee boards with the words you switch out. That the menu is on.
I went to my local one.
Good. Yeah, that's that version of a porno shop.
They're like are using paper cups now, which I guess is still a COVID thing in some places. But on the way out, Tish James was there. I was just chilling, and that's my local, New York. Local color story for the day.
Outside of Romance Depot or where?
Oh no, this is outside of Mike's in Fort Greene.
Okay.
So just proving our bona fides here as a real New York podcast.
That's right.
Lest we decide to abruptly change our localization after a certain episode. That said, it's episode 200, right? 200?
Yeah.
Episode 200 of View from 202. A blessed numerology convergence.
We did it.
We did it, Joe. We did it, Brandon. Blessed numerology convergence, because it is the moment you've been waiting for. It is the preseason episode, the preview. The New York Red Bulls play on Saturday, a real game that counts for points in the MLS 2022 season. So to give all our predictions, our beginning of season analysis, our expectations, it is Cork, Sam, Peaches, and Brit here, as usual, to go through all of that in order. And first things first, one thing we've not discussed yet on the show is the new kit. It came out. There have been steady little leaks for a while. we knew kind of semi-confirmed that there would be some sort of checkerboard thing for a bit. But now we've seen it in the real photos. Has anyone actually seen it in person? Has anyone gone to a store and
you've only seen the replicas?
Right? I went to Adidas Soho like on the day that they announced it or whatever, because usually the turnaround is that quick, and they just had the replicas, which I don't know. It's we talked about it a little bit, but like the gap between the authentics and the replicas is really kind of yawned the last few years. The authentics,
it's gotten worse. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, the authentics are just like, I mean, they're more expensive obviously, but you're getting a better product, whereas the replicas look more and more like, Walmart shirts.
The authentics just fit different though, which sucks.
The fit is definitely different.
It's
not always better.
Well, it depends. It was worse in 2014. That was the worst cut of the authentics.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm just saying for me personally, it's a little too snug.
Mike had a tweet.
Mediums are a little too snug for
Mike
me.
had a tweet that summed this all up. Mike, our guest on our last episode of the Purely Aesthetic Soccer Show, aptly named, where he's saying that for a normal person, a non like half marathon or like soccer players are, you basically have to order a size up, even if you're like kind of fit or thin, but then that means it's super long.
Yep.
Which is annoying.
Yep.
It is like really annoying to walk around with a too long shirt.
No, I think they're just long because even on me, and I'm wearing like my regular size, it's just really long. The hems are just like really low.
I mean, this is one of the features that makes the authentic better. But like they have that like ducktail thing on the back, where the back is longer. Yeah.
The worst part about our kits is the fact that it has to say New York Red Bulls on the bottom, because it would look better tucked in. I'm going to be honest. Like our kits would look better tucked in.
Well, like having that's one of the chief differences between the replica and the authentic is that it doesn't have that New York Red Bulls like letterhead on the bottom,
or like which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
These little details are all that here. The authentic kit defenders have logged on. But like the patches like are different materials. Like they're not like cloth.
The one difference, and I think I kind of fucked up. I mean, I think a lot of people probably fucked up their purchase on these lines was the black jersey from the last couple of years, because like the replica was almost like more substantial looking, and
because that kit kind of looks like a football jersey almost in its own way, so it looks better baggier, and it's
How does the checker pattern look in person?
I mean, on just the replica, I think the checker pattern is pretty solid, and like I thought the checker pattern on the whites, I think the whites from last year are great, and I'm glad those will be back. And I thought just like that subtle kind of graded checker is a lot better than like Croatia or whatever kind of solid style that you might have instead. And like I've only seen the replicas so far, and they're pretty solid. I love a red kit. I like the white. I guess it was kind of a general complaint that if they were going to go with the white color scheme on the sponsor logo, that the club badge should be solid white. Well. But
that's just one thing that, I mean, I guess they've started adding like a monocolor badge to like random graphics and stuff, but that's one thing that just seems like there's been zero movement on for some reason in the last 10 years. Like maybe we just
like having the club badge officially be just a solid color.
Maybe we just like ordered 10,000 badges like 10 years ago, and we're still just like powering through them, but
because the yellow and blue are not jersey colors anymore.
Right. I was gonna say, speaking of details on authentic jerseys, I have noticed that year to year the pattern of the grooves on the badges change, so they don't have the
those
same
kind those are like too much for me. Those kind of like what are you supposed to be doing?
Why are
there
little circles?
Yeah, why do they? Is that? I guess I imagine that it comes out better in like photo resolution or whatever.
I think it's just so that it like bends better with your body.
That too. Stuff like that, but it feels like it's supposed to be like tactile to some extent.
Listen, if you were logging onto the show expecting us to be like, just get the replica kit, it's the same thing, it's cheaper, get a fake from China, go on DHK. No. Get that
you fucking dig in your mom's purse. And
you get the Vapor Match Day kit.
I might get the replica. Also, are you What, like, I'm sorry, is this fucking Radio Free Europe or something? Like dragging Alibaba and China? Like, why are you bringing that into it?
Look, I just, I want to give our listeners a preview of Cork and I's eventual Uniqlo show and the direction that's going to go.
A big
Oh,
subject.
by which you mean, the Japanese imperialism and
That's manufactured by China.
I mean, a big part of the Uniqlo show is going to be making sure nobody's horning in on China's action, manufacturing bootleg
We
bullshit.
got to bring it in. We can't let Eastern imperialism take off.
Yeah, no Ukrainian Uniqlos.
I do think, it is time that everyone acknowledge Welsh sovereignty of Donetsk and Luhansk.
UT has declared themselves an
third
independent
way,
store.
a third way of sorts, But yeah, I think I like the checkerboard pattern in the whites a little better. Like I like it like the way that it's smaller checkers and like a little bit more faded. I didn't realize that like the texture on the, not like the literal tactile texture, but just sort of like the design of the checkerboard is like kind of that hand drawn like scribble look. And it was a lot bigger than I thought. I didn't think it would be that visible.
And the thing about the checkerboard on the branding department at Red Bull will make sure you're saying gray, I think, right? It's not technically white because there are too many.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, there was like a pushback from Adidas because MLS had too many white kits that remember everyone was complaining about, which was bullshit because like, come on, just have a white kit.
I mean, ours was one of the better white kits.
Yeah, exactly.
Like some of the white kits, I mean, like the people getting mad were a little
Why are we
corny
getting
and annoying,
caught in the
but,
crossfire for that?
ours was one of the
We
better
traditionally had a white kit.
There were some
our first
boring
kit was
ones.
white.
There was, I think we were not one of the worst white kits that year. I agree. I like our white kits. I should buy a red kit because I don't really need another white kit, even though I really like the way it looks. But I really do still kind of need a red.
My 2018 red kit is still my long sleeve Ben Mines jersey.
Wow.
So
Nice.
I think I'm due for another one. But the checkerboard on the white ones, the one beat kits, have like a herringbone pattern on them, I think, or something like that. Whereas I don't like the kind of drawn like checkerboard stuff on the red one. I think stuff like that doesn't really translate as well onto fabric.
It was big too, or like
and it's like kind of awkward. Like I like the idea of a monochromatic pattern, but I just don't think that the little details they added a little too much.
Is it has anyone spotted if there's any other Adidas clubs in the world wearing this? I haven't noticed.
Like the
Like
checkerboard
template.
panels.
Yeah. It looks a little newer. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't really recognize it anywhere in MLS. Red Bulls have been having weird little like checkerboard flourishes in a lot of gear for the last couple of years. The kind of foreshadowing. So
not just New York either. Like,
really,
I
other
think
clubs.
Leipzig and Salzburg.
Oh, really?
really?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess one of those two had like that was a Nike kit, not an Adidas kit, but like the sleeves it was more like dots, but it was sort of that kind of like alternating pattern.
Like the edge of a car window.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't mind
You know what I'm talking about.
checkerboard being sort of a like minor motif if it sticks around, as long as it's not like our main thing,
It feels like it's just like this 2-year beat
Isn't-
where like
I don't mind it.
Isn't that kind of a thing with the Red Bull can though?
But it's like the Red Bull is just like it's just four like,
and also Red
box,
Bull
right?
as a can seems to be getting away with that with the new flavors, like having the red edition and the yellow edition
Yeah,
be all
that's true.
monochrome.
Also, it's striking that I feel like none of the Red Bull sports stuff seem to really share that design. Interestingly enough, like I admit, like when I first heard about the Red Bulls existing in like 2006, 2007,
I was gonna be like blue and white squares.
yeah, when like as a teenager, like I assumed like, oh, they probably look like the can, and then I was like, oh, it looks nothing like the can actually. So I don't know. None of the teams seem to.
One of I
that.
think the earliest like RBNY posts I saw on Reddit was
Cool.
like a kit design someone had made up that looked like a can.
Yeah, I mean, it's not.
It looked pretty good if
Kind of
I
looks like
remember
Blackbird
too.
Rovers,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I mean, so it's like not an unprecedented look, but maybe I'll probably get a replica if I'm being honest. I don't know, whatever. Like also, let's be honest, I end up sweating and like trashing these shirts a little bit too, so it's not like the end of the world.
See, I only wear these as like pickup stuff if I'm playing pickup anyway. So it's like the
Yeah.
only reason I'm getting it is to be active in. So I feel like for me, it's just like, oh,
I mean, just wearing it to like a derby game, like in the middle of the day, like, gets it like all messed up
It's pure wankery for me now because I have no reasons to wear it now that I have to be prim and proper in the prawn sandwich.
I think we just gotta work on our foot skills to the point where we could just like walk in with our full kitted up like Umbro tracksuits.
I'd love it. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a good omen anyway, because remember last time we had a red kit. It's quite the season. Also, I think just moving beyond this sort of fucked black and gray and then black and white like kind of series that we had, that seemed almost, I feel like it was like unintentional. I feel like we didn't even realize at the time that we're going to be stuck with like black and gray for a whole year. But
thank God they were the fake zone years.
I know, right? I mean, cause and effect, hard to say. Is causation correlation? Yes. But also we'll be able to combine, mix and match more this year, which is always fun. So I will, unless I find a Carlos Rivas 2018 kit on clearance, I'll probably buy the new kit this year. But the other piece of news that has dropped really is play the jingle. Brazil. We've got Brazil back in the camp. In addition to Cornell, Luquinhas is confirmed as a Red Bulls player.
A Brazilian goalkeeper might as well be like Paraguayan or whatever. I mean, we're finally getting the essence back that we lost.
Who's that Toronto keeper?
Julio Cesar.
Yeah.
Who is that Toronto keeper?
I'm just okay.
The legendary
exactly
Toronto
FC keeper. Yeah, famous for being a Toronto FC keeper.
I think he technically was a Toronto player
when he was on
that World Cup.
Yeah.
As well as Jermaine Defoe was probably technically off the books by then, but that was that same year.
I can't believe that's when Josie came back to MLS, was on that swap deal with Jermaine Defoe.
I do also forget that.
Yeah.
That was part of the
that was
transfer.
A long time ago.
Yikes. But Luquinhas, he's confirmed our newest playmaker. And I believe, you can refresh my memory if I'm wrong here, but I believe in the press conference, in the video or whatever that was put out, there's some fairly explicit quotes, I think, about touting his ability basically as an inverted winger, like an attacking player. Am I right? So it looks like he might be playing opposite of Lewis Morgan up at the top of the field, but we can get into more details there. But exciting that I think we've got probably the final piece of our transfer window here. He's still in Portugal at the moment, I think, so it's probably going to be a couple weeks till he gets totally integrated. Probably similar to the Kaku, schedule of integration into the squad. But lo and behold, do we know his squad number is the most important thing? Yeah.
I feel like a little bit of signs came out that it's going to be
62.
Dun 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 82.
82. Oh,
82. 62 would have been worse. I'll give him that.
True.
62 is one of the
that was
the
Maria's
worst
number,
out there. Right? Oh, true. Damn. Yeah, I don't know. But Mario really had to show me something to overcome.
That's true.
Jersey number 62 because that's rough. 82, not much better.
Has he said why? He does 82.
He was born in 82.
No, we're well beyond that now.
He's I don't know. He's really
his mom was born in 82.
I'm just trying to think of a movie that he's really into fucking Scarface or something. I don't fucking know.
Was that the year that Reagan got shot? I think it was probably 81. Yeah. But that's a head scratcher. I hope he does not keep 82. Please, Luquinhas, this is the most important thing. Do we have an 8? I think we
don't. It should be Cáceres, but Cáceres is still bullshitting around with 23. But
was that guy?
23 is the most bullshit of like the acceptable numbers. We've talked about this.
Was that there's that youth guy that we signed to a contract for?
Edelman. Well, Edelman's not going to 8.
No, I'm thinking for him like 2019 season. What was that guy's name? Afori? No.
Oh, Kofi.
He was 8,
Kofi.
I think.
Oh, yeah.
For a year.
Mm-hmm.
So if no one else has taken it from then.
Kofi, who Chris Armas like went out of his way to go at length about how impressive he was in that preseason. Never saw the field.
Maybe ends up with
Never saw the
Manchester
field
United.
once. Huh?
Maybe ends up with Manchester United after all of this.
One can hope. I'm rooting for you, Jean Christophe.
That was a crazy one because like I feel
Tom
like
Dwyer's gonna start at Manchester United.
it was like, oh, we even like stole him from DC or something, and then boom, nothing. Just
Yeah.
0 minutes ever. That is an annoying part of. I feel like the glut of coverage, I guess, around this is that you have so much spilled ink about guys like that come to nothing, and it's like maybe I'll just watch the first team and figure out who's good when they play for the first team, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, please don't be 82 Lucunius. Any other welcoming thoughts for Lucunius here? Any other excitement? I mean, we're gonna get, I think, more. I mean, maybe this can be our bridge into talking about what we expect to see out of the team.
Oh, I thought you were just gonna say we're gonna do Rodizio again this year.
Yeah, but
Do a what?
Rodizio again this year.
Yeah, why not? Let's do it.
We should.
I think we should grill some meats, smoke some meats, and
Woke
Kanya for
Rodizio.
Luquinhas.
keep smoking meats with some sweet baby rays, and make sure to live stream it. But yeah, so with Lucunius in, looks like we more or less have a picture of our squad going into this season. However, we've yet really to see anyone play or see the team play on any sort of live footage. Last week, the team did run out in the Coachella thing out in California.
The fourth annual thing.
Oh, it was fourth annual?
No, it was first annual.
Oh.
They literally slapped it up like days in advance. So yeah,
Was there?
Oh, we lost to the host of the tournament, right?
that's what's supposed to happen. They had the home field advantage.
That's true.
That's
why people have been taking way too much weight into the fact that we were playing away the whole time.
our
Playing on their stomping grounds.
LAFC are they were considered the host.
I think Galaxy technically arranged it. I think it was probably a thing that the league put together in general because there were so many teams that were like struggling to get dates on the calendar.
We should
preseason.
relocate one of the two San Diego teams. Relocate one of them to like Palm Springs so that they can be like, you know, the vanity project for that. They can
like
host that.
Tucson FC for the mobile mini Sun Cup.
Yep.
What if MLS in the off season went to Europe to do, you know, off season?
That'd be a flex. I'm down. Let's do it.
You know, I think I've seen FC Tucson play a game actually.
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure I saw them play the Dynamo in like one of the first games at BBVA Stadium. Where like, you know, 12 people were there, but that's the best, you know, like a first round thing.
Yeah, those are the vibes.
Yeah. And I'm glad. Do they still exist? I hope they still exist.
I think so, but like they were trying to move up to like main pro USL right when COVID happened, so that got fucked up. But yeah,
the most info that we have from this is basically tweeted lineups and then when goals were scored or whatever. Like I don't think they even tweeted like when guys are subbed in and out, because they were
tweeting subs for like the last couple games. It was actually, they weren't tweeting, like Red Bulls at least weren't tweeting like who or like the minutes or whatever. I don't think, because when I was just writing it up for OAM, I was pulling it from LAFC's social feed, which they weren't doing much more. I mean, they were just naming guys, which was all you needed.
It makes sense that this may have been thrown together last minute by the league, because I think compared to previous preseason tournaments, like the one that they hold in Orlando, I guess all the infrastructure is just there, and it was very easy for them to just turn on a camera and put it on a stream.
Same thing in
previous
Charleston.
years.
Yeah.
Like, this year, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's probably just a continued outgrowth of the production value of everything dropping a little bit over COVID.
Oh, I was gonna say I must have used all of the equipment they got from their pivot to video for this.
Well, I guess Wide World of Sports probably just has that shit lying around.
They probably have ESPN
Well, I mean, yeah,
cameras,
this was at literally like it was at the literal like concert ground at Coachella, which is actually a polo facility, which this MLS preseason tournament was the initial event of this polo facility, basically giving up polo and leasing the facility out to the concert company.
Wow.
And just being like, it's going to be an all-purpose like sports venue. So yeah, it probably will become a more regular thing. They'll probably put stands and press infrastructure.
Polo Grounds 5.
Polo Grounds 5,
All
baby. Fucking going back to Cali.
The best part about not having any broadcasting equipment there was that nobody got to witness John Tolkien wearing a ceremonial headdress at Coachella.
Maybe that's a good thing. But yeah, so it is disappointing that we haven't, been able to actually see anything and are just kind of making a guess. Knocking on wood that it's going to be back, next year's preseason will be back kind of to pre-COVID standards, at least in terms of letting us snoop in and watch. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but for us, I don't know, nerds who do watch stuff like that, it'd be nice to have more than no idea of like what the team was looking.
Especially
like.
when you're nerds like us, it's always even if you're not like, don't have like stuff that you painstakingly want to watch or like new signings or whatever. It's always just a nice little like, oh, cool. Watch the team in these little low stakes games.
Right.
Yeah. Dip your toes back into the water and get your rhythm again.
Right. But don't be like 2015 me, where I was angry that Mike Grello was getting more time in preseason than Sal Zizzo, because I turned out wrong. And then, if anyone ever tries to put weight into the results of preseason, it's just like someone you don't trust.
I mean, I don't know why you had to pit two great Italian Americans against each other instead of just letting them both flourish for a
two people
team.
of carbonara.
Jesus. I can't believe you said that. That's so offensive. That is ridiculous. Jesus.
I'm here for the diversity of opinions here. It's not Fredophobia, is what I'm saying.
Adam Egret over here. But okay, so what is, I think, Cork, you maybe took a stab at this, Froyam. Like, what did you have a sense of how we were probably lining up and maybe what we were drawing this last week?
Well, there's been there was a little like tidbit, I guess, that came out that Tom Bogert from MLS said there's that 4-3-3. He's hearing whispers from within the league that 4-3-3 is what they're coming out with, in which, I don't know, not again, this is such stupid stuff to pretend like you can extrapolate from, but the little bit of video that we got from some of the friendlies, you could see, there are guys definitely, and this is kind of a topic we've covered in recent episodes of this show, guys who are going to the line to cross, like do like real shallow cutbacks for some of the goals that we scored, and there's just some of the action that got filmed. And I guess that could speak to there being a 4-3-3 kind of in action. But my hunch through this whole offseason, seeing some of the moves that we've seen, is that we're basically going to try and do, or Struber's going to try and do the formation that he sort of fell into a groove with at the end of last year, the kind of hybrid 3-5-man backline, whatever you want to call it, but 3 center backs with deep wide players, and then kind of having just a kind of square midfield and a single striker from there. Kind of a 5-5-4-1 or 3-6-2, whatever you want to call it, but with better personnel. Because last year we were doing that formation and it was usually either Wiki Carmona or Christian Cáceres, who's an even worse fit despite him managing to get some production out of that role, that just never made the formation that fluid. Whereas if you have some players like Morgan and Luquinhas, who I imagine were scouted to sort of, fit those roles better, players who are more adept at carrying the ball, players who, just move in and out of space better than I think Carmona and Cáceres do, being more kind of, ball playing players. I think there's signs that, and I think that's a pretty sensible approach, because I think when you watch this team at the end of last year, you saw so much dominance in most games, honestly, without it translating into much connection in the final third. And I think just having, honestly, just guys playing the Joker, just, not really, not being static, not, just sitting in a certain pod of the field and trying to make things happen, but actually moving around and trying to solve problems and making runs will make such a difference and be, the oomph, so to speak, that was missing in the team in so many games that we dominated at the end of last year.
The question that comes to mind for me, and I feel like, feel free to say that the premise of this question is just like off. But the thing that comes to mind, and I think might come to mind for other people hearing this, is if we're going out with a similar shape and we're adding kind of players to burst out of like a really defensively smothering kind of thing and add that attack, do you think that it can become a question of sacrificing a little bit of that shutdown play at the back and keeping it really tight in exchange for being a little bit more fluid and dangerous going forward? Or do you think we can do both just by upgrading certain players on the field?
I think there's a possibility that the structure could be better. The defensive structure could be better in addition to the offensive structure with these guys. I mean, Morgan is a guy who has played, deeper even in MLS. He's played as more of a wing back. He has the work rate and the defensive skills to do that. And then Luquinhas just being, just guys who are more mobile and just get to different areas of the field better than, Carmona and Cáceres necessarily did. And then even Clark came back in at the very tail end of the season and actually helped out on both sides a little better also, and he'll be in the mix too. But I think, this is kind of Red Bull cliches, so to speak, but that the offensive and defensive phases of the game, can kind of compound with each other, and having guys who are hitting those cues and more active on the offensive side of the ball, that's a lot of the same traits that will help you on the defensive side too. So I think not to completely poo-poo your question like you were afraid I was going to.
Well, no, I do think do it, maybe.
Yeah, no, I do think there's a potential that not only can we preserve the defensive structure we had at the end of the last year, but I think it could maybe even improve.
Well, I think when you're saying that there's talk around the league about a possible 4-3-3, and like our immediate reaction to think that there's this kind of three in the back, maybe like a 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 type of thing. I think both can be true. And you often see this with like these three in the back formation teams, that when they're in possession, they're playing very much like this three in the back formation. But like when these wing backs push up, they very much almost act like another winger. And then like the players further in the midfield will act as forwards then, right? And like someone like Morgan will facilitate if he ends up playing wing back at all, not to say that he is, because we don't really know what's going on, I guess. But if he does play that kind of position, that's a lot more open to switching to like a 4-3-3 in transition versus playing a three back when we're in possession, and those are the things that we can combine and add those sophistications because we have a more fluid attacking core. And
along those lines with, having the wing backs pushed up so high. I mean, you heard Struber talk a lot last year about overloads, and I think when you combine that with how you've seen some like his teams at Barnsley play towards the end, when he finally got kind of his ethos installed, that I think he is kind of I think he would in his dream, this will be kind of two layers of wingers attacking at all times, constantly trying to find space in the wide areas, but through which wide player you don't know. I think that is kind of like the ideal of his attack and what we'll kind of try to see once the team is, up and running.
Which is great because I think Tom Edwards returning is also great for this, right? Because if he plays right center back and then, we get the ball in the midfield, he plays right back then.
Right,
immediately.
Exactly.
He's not in the country yet, right?
It doesn't seem so. He did his little like Hey Fans video from like his room on Zoom.
And Tolkien seems to be amped for for him to come back.
So. What's his health looking like? He was out or injured,
That's
right?
true, yeah.
It's not
a month
clear.
or two.
It was They reported,
but that was like back in January, right?
They reported like 2 months, like in mid-ish January.
Yeah.
That Tom Edwards video reminded me of like there's some baseball player on Twitter who's like a quadruple A guy. He's like always going back and forth, but I think he has a bunch of followers because he talks shit with Noah Syndergaard all the time. And he just signed for some Korean team or something, and they posted his photo on their Twitter, and all of the replies were like, why does it look like he just woke up out of bed?
Yeah.
And then he replied being like, I thought this photo, like my wife took this photo literally when I woke up out of bed because I thought it was only going to be for my visa. And then they fucking tweeted it saying like, welcome. It's also like the legend. This is sort of the opposite in some sense, but like that Jets thing that was like, out with diarrhea.
Yeah.
Like Sam Darnold. Yeah. But you know, Edwards' video is more charming than that. But if it's 4-3-3, it's like, I mean, I guess it's not quite as flexible as 3-4-3, but do we have a sense of which which wide player, and or if maybe it's both, might be the one that pushes up more when we are pushing forward? I mean, do we think that Tolkien or Nealis, for instance, on Saturday might be more likely to kind of join in an overload, or do you think we'll probably see them take turns?
I think it sounds like from a little bit of the reading the tea leaves from the preseason lineups that Morgan has been lining up as the right back, which, you know, might just good at this. Yeah, I mean, it just might just be a contingency plan for until Edwards gets back up to speed, or until Nealis is up to, you know, the playbook, so to speak.
He's playing the Christian Pulisic role at RBNY this year.
Is Pulisic playing right back?
Occasionally, yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Not for Pulisic, but that Morgan has been playing right back, so I think there's a good chance that we could see that at least in the early weeks of the season. But just as a hypothetical, like you laid out, I think is good, Brit, between Tolkien and Nealis, Dylan Nealis, is both because Dylan Nealis has a reputation as more of an attacking player and more of a kind of up and down mobile player, and because Tolkien is kind of more of a ball holder. I think that Nealis is more likely to be that player pushing up more, and Tolkien being the player who's going to kind of facilitate and circulate the ball in the back and be kind of more of a wide defensive midfielder as much of a fullback.
Yeah, I was going to defer to you because you definitely know more about Dylan Nealis than I do, but just knowing John Tolkien and his profile so far, I don't really expect him to be the one that's bombing up forward. But as you're saying, he like facilitates play well. He stays back and is good at kind of last ditch defending anyway. So you know,
that sounds better, especially with Lucanius coming in on the left side, having that sort of option for Tolkien to either look up and find either him or Morgan or Klimala from further back in the field, because I feel like especially towards the end of last season, there were a lot of passages of play, especially maybe where we ground down the other team and they got a little tired and they just let us have the ball a little bit, where Tolkien would get the ball and then sort of wait for Davis to arrive, and then they would both kind of just like hold on to the ball for a little bit. And I was like, this is not really working. This is not how we drew it up. So if we can get him distributing more to guys being a little bit more penetrating, that sounds much better.
Having a couple of inverted wingers with Tolkien will also just give him enough space to put in a cross and you know, like be out wide and give us our widths if we're playing three in the back.
Do we have a couple? Sorry,
he'll also have another year of just confidence, right? That's I feel true. Like the first half of the season last year, he just was kind
working his way up.
Anxious, like on the ball, made some like pretty like, I don't know,
rookie errors.
Yeah, exactly. And you look back often, like he wouldn't push forward,
but he didn't even look that uncomfortable then either. So it's like, yeah, he's totally comfortable now. Hopefully he just like grows in confidence and starts, like he already started trying a lot of stuff a little too much though, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I'll say, I mean, I've said this before in previous episodes, but I think our fullback play was tentative by design a lot of times last year too. Like a lot of times we know Duncan liked to dribble in his game naturally, but he also was sort of holding back and sort of waiting for guys to arrive. And I would anticipate that to slightly change, even if we're running out sort of a similar system, just with the guys that we've added this year. Do we know, is Lucanius, and I guess Morgan for that matter, are we about to have two cut inside men on the team?
Could very well be. I think it's just a general shift of emphasis from, because obviously, I mean, the team parted ways with Fabio. Maybe they would have liked to have him back, but it doesn't seem like they tried all that hard. And I think there was a general sense by the end of the year that wasn't the ideal partnership for Klimala, and obviously Klimala is kind of the golden goose right now, who we need to sort of build around and make sure, kind of the rest of the team is set up well for. And that obviously wasn't working for Fabio, and it's good that they kind of seem to have made a decision to not do a retread on that and try a new sort of target man strike partner pair. And instead, they've gone ahead and added kind of more mobile, smaller pieces around to sort of buzz around Klimala, as opposed to kind of work in tandem with him or dovetail with him. Instead, they're going to kind of, the team hasn't had any problems last year, like getting the ball into the final third. It's just creating danger and dynamism once that happens. And I think having a smaller, more mobile set of forwards will help that considerably.
If anything, I'm a little concerned about our midfielders, or like our depth of midfielders. I mean, like we have a lot, but I don't know. Like I'm pretty comfortable with Drew Yearwood, obviously.
I have the least filled in picture of those guys.
Yep.
Before we move on, though, do we have a sense of if, I mean, how long was Lukinius in Poland? Has he picked up some Polish? Are him and Klimala going to be able to chat?
Well, I was going to say there's this one Reddit comment that was saying how he's very comfortable only speaking Portuguese, and that he should have a Portuguese speaker on the team. He
spoke super thick Portuguese too in his little intro video. Like even with the subtitles, I can usually even if I don't understand what the words mean, I can make out like the phonemes, and I couldn't do that with him. It was like straight.
I did
fast slurring.
I watched an episode of The Circle Brazil last night, and so I'm training my ear to really to master the between that and the F1 show. I'm really broadening my accents for maximum offensiveness so far this season.
Is there a big difference between the accents of Brasilia and like Rio?
Is he from Brasilia?
Isn't that the thing? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, I know there's a huge difference between like the Northeast and the South.
Yeah.
So, and I would assume that Coronel probably has a fairly, I don't know, maybe he has a generic accent, but his region is kind of out in the sticks too. Where he
supposedly
grew up, so.
The town in Brasilia, or like the suburb in Brasilia that he's from, is known as the most northeastern Brazilian town in northwestern Brazil, or like in central Brazil. It's the Bakersfield of central Brazil.
Good poll.
So,
okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
so I'll get along with Aaron Long.
I wonder.
Pretty much. Yeah. He'll get along with Freddie Adu from
Aaron
Freddie's
Long,
time at Bahia.
The Brasilia accent could be just like a total composite Frankenstein. Who knows? But
like DC.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think, I mean, maybe it's time to sort of run through the squad or the anticipated formation. I mean, part of this, I mean, I guess we can sort of think about literally Saturday. And by that, I mean, basically anticipating guys like Lukinius, Edwards, who we might anticipate being real first team options, but not for a couple weeks. But then also just sort of thinking in general, because I think in certain parts of the field, we definitely have a pretty decent picture of what we might expect, but others, like the midfield, less so. So, I mean, I think moving back to front, pretty clear. Coronel is in between the sticks, barring any sort of, I mean, I'm knocking on all the wood I can find. I mean, I anticipate him to get as much playing time as there are minutes.
He's going to Ryan Mara still with the club, though, so
Yeah, I never know. Mara's going to get his Ireland caps this year, and Coronel is going to be the first since Julio Cesar to get Brazil caps in MLS. So
it's finally happening for Ryan Mara.
Yeah. So and then is AJ Marucci or
Marcucci?
Fuck. Have I been reading this wrong this whole time? Wow.
Lil Cooch.
I don't think you've ever said his name before.
I'm in my head.
You've been saying Marucci?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been saying it.
I'm pretty sure Marucci is like a sports
Mariucci
brand.
Oh yeah, Steve, like Mariucci baseball, I think.
Yeah, there's like a baseball equipment brand.
And Steve Mariucci.
Is there an I in there though? Mariucci?
Yeah.
Oh fuck.
But no, this is
Now
AJ,
I'm the
AJ
anti-Italian.
AJ Marcucci.
Marcucci. Okay. So is he going to be the RB2 starter, aka like,
Probably.
All right. Because have we seen Nico Politis in camp yet? Or is he in the Black Sea?
He's no, he's in camp. He's getting his Gladio training in Montclair, and yeah, there's pictures of him. He's looking like a Greek goalkeeper, pretty much.
Great. Have we signed him yet? I can't remember.
No, we're trialing him and like a few other college keepers to be that like fourth like RB2 keeper. Yeah.
Okay. So
because Luca Lewis is gone. Luca Lewis got banished.
Right.
For being weird.
I mean,
Luca Lewis is speaking at CPAC.
I wish they had done more with that character.
Yeah.
But he shouldn't have sold drugs out of the club. They told him that was not allowed.
Exactly. Stop name dropping.
Yeah.
He did.
Okay, that's a reference to a TV show. Many of you have known. I'm not saying he did it.
Yeah, please don't. Take us to Italian libel court. Fucking. What was I gonna say? He always stood out like his like. NBA bench street clothes for not dressing for basically any games was always like on point. He was flashier than Fabio when like Fabio wouldn't dress for games. So that's a shame, but it's time for AJ's time to shine.
All right. Yeah. Well, overall, depending on whatever happens with the twos, I mean, I trust that they'll figure it out, whatever. But goalkeeper situation, pretty solid, barring disaster. Back four, back five-ish. Moving on, of course, as Peaches mentioned, Aaron Long has been named captain for this season. Hard to argue. Makes a lot of sense. Pretty intuitive pick, in my opinion. Seems to be the consensus. Love to see Aaron back and healthy. I guess he didn't make it into the USA squad ultimately, right? Because he was, but he got pretty close.
Can I say the low-hanging fruit?
What?
It looks like we're looking to trade him then.
Well, or he might just leave on a free.
Yeah, that's true.
Which could happen, but who cares? Right now, it's a 2022 season. And, you know what? It's 2/22/22, and it's a 200. Oh, fuck. If only we had done 2 more episodes, it would have been episode 202.
And then we can finally cancel the show.
Then the universe would have imploded. Anyway, Aaron Long is a center back who figures to be, real first-team option, despite being out last season, because as we know, Andres Reyes very unfortunately had that very severe foot fracture. Sean Nealis next to him, you have to assume, will also be a significant player on the back. Then the question I think becomes, if we're going to do this 3-5 look, or if we're not, and then is Tom Edwards going to be part of that? Is Lucas Monzon going to be a part of that? Are we going to see Lucas Monzon on the left? This is in his tool shed, right? Playing on the left. Yeah. Last year he kind of, he arrived here on loan. It wasn't really surprising he didn't play, especially given our 2 center backs were just monsters the whole season. It wasn't a disappointment, but I don't know. Do you guys expect we see Monzon here either as a center back or as a left back throughout the year?
I would like to see more of him. I mean, what was the only minutes we ever saw of him was like the injury time in DC, right? That was it.
I didn't even remember that.
And he played at left back because I think Tolkien was hurt, or he got injured, and it was like the 80th minute, and we were already down 1-0, and it was just junk minutes. I would like to give him, I think, a real opportunity back there, especially if we do go 3 center backs. Mm-hmm. And we don't have the luxury of putting Tom Edwards back there because he's not, I don't think, match ready. We can assume,
right?
He's not even here, but right. He won't be ready for a few weeks anyway. So I would like to see that to some extent. I guess it just depends on where we play Morgan. If we do play him as a wing back in a 5-man back line, then presumably Edwards would maybe drop in as a center back as well. But I would prefer him up top or as a winger. I think we all would. So if that were the case, we would want Monzon as a center back if we do end up going 3 in the back.
Yeah, it's hard to tell whether he's or how capable, because like Sam said, there was that sub appearance where he replaced Tolkien, but that could have just been a makeshift thing because it's really hard to tell how suited he is to play out wide and play as more of a left back, because outside of Tolkien, we are kind of thin there. I would hope that's kind of on the agenda for one of the last signings, either in the preseason or before the window closes in May. But in the meantime, Monzon's basically the only cover there. So even if we aren't in a 3-man back line, I think he'll might be getting some minutes there. And I think he'll almost definitely in some formation or another be getting minutes at center back for sure. I mean, he came in kind of quietly at the end of last year, but he's more kind of a big deal than I think people realize, because there was both the context of that everybody wanted us to sign somebody immediately, like the idea that we needed to turn the season around last summer window, and then him being sort of a disappointment in the context of that. And then also the fact that he was only like 19 years old and he comes from the Uruguayan domestic league where there's not a lot of game footage and, stuff to analyze. But all that being said, it seemed, the subtext seemed to be that we had to beat out some European teams to get to him, that he's a pretty, highly heralded prospect. So, if we're going to get anything out of him, if we're going to see anything, he's going to have to get minutes this year. So
he's a U22 initiative guy. So he's basically a young DP.
Money,
like for all, a little, like a few pegs below, but he's still a.
I mean, I was legitimately excited when he signed. I joke around about assuming he's world class, but at the time I was. I mean, as you alluded to, I was very desperate to see a center back join the squad, just anyone healthy. And then, as it so happened, Reyes and Nealis both got healthy and started playing out of their minds, and it sort of made it redundant, which is a good problem to have. But yeah, it seems like this could really be somebody that people are sleeping on. I mean, even among the pretty plugged in Red Bulls folks, because
the timing of the announcement.
Yeah, because it was a good problem to have. As I said, Reyes and Nealis just played so well last year that it became easy to forget.
Yeah, and I think as we're all saying, he's going to have to play out of necessity at this point. Just looking at our injuries already going into the season.
It's also Jason Pendon's got enough minutes last year sporadically that it's and he's still here, right? So it's hard to tell.
On loan, right?
He's not.
He's still technically just
that's an error on the
roster.
roster.
Old roster thing.
Yeah,
I remember that. Okay.
Yeah,
because it's. I mean, I guess he didn't have an option or anything, did he? Because I assume. I mean, I don't know if he did have an option. I would have assumed we just would have let him go. Maybe, I don't know. But it's hard to tell exactly where he fits into like, if we need a left back and Tolkien is tired or hurt or whatever, it's unclear to me.
Yeah.
Now that you say that, you know what? I'm going to really miss, I guess like the overall vibes were bad, but I like specifically Mandela Egbo's vibes were good.
Yeah, at first, but then I don't know. It kind of became, I don't know. It got weird for me by the end, or it just. Anyway,
it's just because you can't accept someone who could just hang. I
mean, we have Ryan Mara here doing that already. All right, you can only have so many guys just hanging.
My thought is like, if all this talk about maybe switching to a 4-3-3, like, is that because someone like Reyes is so crucial to having that three-man set, back line?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's also. I think it could be true that simultaneously that Struber wants to continue with the shape that he ended with last year, but also he could be very open to switching things in a month if need be, right?
I think, like, as I was saying before, I think it's just like part of this system is going to be like being able to just like play in that 4-3-3 no matter where we line up too with whatever players. Just like in that transition, we're going to be able to overload using the numbers that we create in the midfield by adding another one of our center backs or something.
I do feel like
our wing backs.
Often in our, especially when we have decent seasons, there's often sort of one move that we're like, oh, well, obviously, somebody's gonna, like, Andres Reyes is gonna start playing and Neil is gonna stop playing, or obviously Kaku's gonna start playing immediately and start doing that. I feel like this year's equivalent of that is gonna be like, oh, Morgan's gonna be up the field and like as an attacking player, and I could totally see it kind of just lasting for a week. Couple weeks, and it's like, oh god, Lewis Morgan's just been playing right back for a while.
Wing
like,
back, huh?
Just I think due to the circumstances, I could see that happening. Me just every week assuming that he's going to play further up the pitch, and it just gets pushed back.
Yeah, Morgan put in 2 crosses this week.
Yeah.
It's really making.
That's that. Moving up towards, unless there's other thoughts on Dylan Nealis or Tolkien, I think we can move up towards the midfield, which I think has probably the most question marks, I guess, or flexibility. Where, and I think this is also an area where, to deploy another classic soccer cliche, you've got the potential for there to be, like a new signings here, sort of. You've got Clark, who's coming back for a couple months and was out of fitness and weird after the appendectomy last year. You've got Frankie Amaya, who also seemed to have a fitness issue and sort of just being out of form last year after making him transfer in the middle of the season. You've got Wiki Carmona, who actually appears to have a knock maybe right now. And then you have Cáceres. And I think with Carmona and Cáceres, it's more just sort of the potential that maybe they were played out of position maybe a little bit less last year, and that maybe they slot into something more intuitive for them this year. That's a stable of 4 players alone who I think just one of them could show up more than they did last year, and I think would kind of take people by surprise. Other than that, I think you've got Drew Yearwood, who you have to expect would be sort of the anchor there in midfield. And I think a lot of questions that people have is like, who's going to pair with him instead of Davis? Because I think people are just kind of applying last year's model forward. And I guess, I don't know, to answer that question, who do you think is going to pair with Drew Yearwood, or is no one going to pair with him at all? And is he going to be more alone kind of at his part of the field, working with 2 8s or maybe a 10, so to speak, instead of the double pivot?
Did we talk about like that question of like, do we need to replace Sean Davis? Like, did we really address that? I feel like we had kind of thoughts about like how that might not even be something we should be thinking about.
Yeah, I think we talked about that last episode.
I mean, there's
now that we know, I guess now it seems like we know more that like there's not going to be like a like for like transfer.
Right. I mean, there's when you actually like kind of, look at it for a minute or two, when the Davis move happened, when you look at it for a minute or two, you see that we actually were kind of deep in central midfield, especially when you see that we're making signings in the positions that Cáceres was having to play at the end of last year. Mm-hmm. Because Cáceres, it's easy to forget, first came to the Red Bulls as more of a kind of deep 6 midfielder. So Cáceres could move into that mix too, where you mentioned, Amaya and obviously Yearwood being there. And then there's also Daniel Edelman, who is, the most hyped central midfield player, possibly the most hyped academy product in general since Tyler Adams, who's going to be coming through this year. And you have to imagine he's going to be getting at least rotation minutes, and maybe he grabs it by the horns. You never know.
Yeah.
John Tolkien as well.
Well, yeah, that's another thing too. Although you would think he's going to be pretty stretched at left back.
Well, yeah, but it's an option. We've seen that.
And Edwards,
right? And Edwards, right? We have seen that too.
That's true.
And Aaron Long,
If we had, but it seems like we have 3 spots for all of these players potentially. I mean, if we're looking at midfield, because I feel like the attack in all of our ideal scenarios is going to be the same 3 people up there. But we talk about even like a 4-3-3. Like if we look at like, okay, what 3 midfielders do we choose? Mm-hmm. Yearwood's already a guarantee as being one of them. I mean, I assume.
Yeah.
So then you have 2 others. I mean, I think that one thing that we've talked about before is maybe giving Amaya a fresh look in a different spot, maybe a little bit deeper. because I don't know if he, is up for that attacking role. But I'm not sure who else you would play with, if you were to play three midfielders in that scenario, who else would go in there? It's either CCJ or Clark. And I'm not sure. It looked like the club was kind of gravitating toward, Clark
or Omir.
Yeah, true. I forgot about Omir.
Because I mean, maybe thinking about this month
Which
period,
sucks.
this month or so until Lucchini is here could be instructive, because I would assume that Omir is going to get minutes one way or the other until Lucchinius gets here. Just looking at the numbers, but is it going to be in sort of Lucchinius's position and then he's replaced by him, or is he going to be playing more centrally in the midfield and still play when Lucchinius gets here? Is it going to be a little bit of both? Hard to say.
Now that we're talking about Omir, I wonder if the reason we're getting all these like inverted winger types was because we saw how the tandem worked with Klimala and like Omir and stuff like that at the end of last year.
I think that's
right, like a
totally
good like catalyst for why we did that.
I think there were moments, and we all love Omir on here, but
I mean, you said this last season multiple times, like we can't find another guy who does this stuff.
Yeah. Right, exactly. I mean, finding a guy who's a little cleaner, a little sharper with those sorts of maneuvers, like I said earlier, I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot for last year's team to be a lot better.
Yeah,
I mean,
on paper.
Omir also still like maybe steps up even more this year, and
that's always a possibility.
If there's just one other guy in the field who can do that, and Omir doesn't have to be plugged in, going 99% the whole game, and maybe if he disappears for 5 to 10 minutes, that's okay. Somebody else can take that on. I think can go a long way too. Because I think he just got sort of fatigued, both physically and maybe mentally, from just having to do that sort of thing for a month straight there at the end of the season, which could be big. But that's further up the field. I mean, I guess it becomes a question of where do you really draw the line between the midfield and the forwards here. Klimala is really sort of the only out and out guy, truly up top. But I in short, I have no idea exactly how much CCJ is going to play or where. Same with Amaya. Again, is Clark's loan just a couple months? Or
no, it's for the whole season.
Okay, good. Then, I don't mind so much if he gets playing times. If it was just a couple months, I'd kind of lean more towards no. But I think to wrap up this portion and discussion of the midfield, we've touched on it already, but I think it'd be good to sort of reiterate and put a bow on this of what is our sense of how the midfield is going to line up, so to speak. Like, is it going to be Drew alone at the base with two guys further up top? Are we expecting a double pivot or not? Or do we not know?
It's weird because like, I feel like last year I would say that Drew's not kind of the base of that. If we're doing like a 3-man midfield, like he shouldn't be that player, but also, I don't know. I feel like he really showed him, coming into strides as like maybe being a holding midfielder last year, so he can play that position. But I think it really depends on how we match up. But I think we have enough options where we can kind of like mix and match the skill sets that we have right now a little bit and figure out a configuration that works, that links up the defense and the attack.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem, the frustration that we had toward the end of last year was that we had guys who just didn't get a lot of opportunities and chances up top. And there was this big kind of gap between the midfield and the attack. And there was a lot of frustration there. And it led to just not as many chances being created. I would love if Drew could play a little deeper in the midfield and then give us an opportunity to put another, a couple midfielders who could push up and then connect the attack with the midfield and back line. So if that's any combination of CCJ, Amaya, and Clark, I'm happy with really any of those three. Maybe even Omir, if he needs to be subbed in somewhere, if he's not going to be in the top three. But I would love to see that. It's just that connection with the attack and the midfield center backs.
Sorry for the loud dog. I'm gonna break the fourth wall here. Address the elephant in the room. Not everyone can have beautiful well-behaved cats as a pet, unfortunately. But
there were a couple of interruptions from Fred and Marty back in the remote days of 202.
Not audible though.
Not audible.
It was just visual.
Anyway, we love all of our children,
and also our fifth host anyway. So
but maybe to that point, maybe I'm focusing on the wrong part of the field. Maybe the double pivot question is less interesting. It's like, what is the midfield presence at the top of the midfield look like? I think I'm also hazy on that. And what does the midfield support for our inverted wingers or kind of wide players in Klimala look like? Do we know who it's going to be, or do we know even just what role it is on the field? I would assume maybe we have an Omir type player still up there, whether it's Omir or someone else. But I think Saturday could be very telling, elucidating. Even though I assume that Saturday's starting lineup will makeshift.
You can more. It's kind of a situation where you can more or less tell what the personnel is going to be for the starting lineup on Saturday, but how they're going to be set up is very unclear.
Yeah, so, it's exciting.
No, it's going to be interesting. Yeah,
but also like unknown.
So for Saturday, do you think we're going to have a front three on Saturday? Klimala.
I think it might be kind of the narrow thing we were doing at the end of last year, more because we don't have Lucchinius at all, and I think Morgan is going to have to be deeper. So I don't know that we see that rolled out just yet. I think we try and see kind of square peg Caceres as an attacking midfielder, and maybe Clark too. But and then they'll take time to build out kind of the wider, more dynamic roles once they have that personnel.
If there's somebody playing further back with Drew, I think no matter who it is at this point, I will go, interesting.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting no matter what.
It will be like you'll, and again, first games of the season, first couple weeks of the season, it's always kind of like weird feeling out lineups. A lot of guys aren't ready for whatever reason, and it doesn't necessarily end up being, the lineup for the rest of the year. That goes for the Red Bulls and goes for any soccer team. Yeah. But yeah, what you just said, I think, is really spot on. That just like you'll be very tempted, whoever gets lined up next year would think that that's kind of a domino for the rest of the team's tactics for the rest of the year, and that probably won't be the case, but it'll still be interesting to think about.
So we're playing San Jose on Saturday, right? At San Jose. I have to.
First time against Almeida since Champions League.
Wow.
Well, didn't we play his team? Opening day of 2019.
Was he? Yeah, I guess he was already there in 2019 because that's when Velo got his second injury. So that's true.
Yeah, and I think BWP scored a goal in that game, and that was, or maybe he came on late. I can't remember.
Yeah,
but that was like when we tore them apart with their like man marking thing.
Right.
And that was like really kind of the only game we ran rampant that year.
Yeah.
Troubled memory in hindsight. But I am inclined to think that Struber is going to just try to run the team out and sort of play a system that we want to do, rather than trying to like
fit certain guys
or like match San Jose super precisely. That said, the first couple games of last season, he did go out to LA and like try a different thing putatively to kind of match up well. But he seemed to express some sort of acknowledgement that was maybe
didn't work,
or a needless move last year. Based on what we've heard so far, I would expect we're going to roll out and not try to get too specific based on San Jose. I would expect something similar from San Jose, to be honest. The fact that it's a East-West matchup with not a ton on the line yet. So I'm kind of looking for this to be sort of a standard rollout and nothing too out of the ordinary.
It sounds like you're not serious about the Supporters Shield to me.
Well, no, I mean, I expect us to win 8-0 as always, obviously. And I don't, I know, I guess San Jose didn't make the playoffs last year because the only thing I know about the West last year is that nobody in California or Texas made it. So they can't be doing that great. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So it's sinking in. that it's gonna finally be real. We're gonna finally have real things to talk about. Because Lord knows I'm tired of the off-season discourse. Just been closing my eyes, waiting. With that, I think we can move into our predictions section.
Yay.
Where we look forward to the season. I'm not going to make us go through and listen to the hilarious failed predictions from previous years because ain't nobody got time for that. But
we've never been wrong either.
Oh,
so
that's true. Obviously, that's true.
Especially me.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think our final sort of prognosis in this section will be a sort of prediction on how basically, how this whole season's going to go in general, sort of a range of best case scenario to worst case scenario. But to start us off, let's knock out some quicker, easier, more lighthearted predictions for this 2022 season for Rebel New York. Folks, fellas, gentlemen, who do you think the top scorer for your New York Red Bulls will be in 2022 this year? Or if we're all going to say the same person, and also say who you think the second top scorer is going to be.
Henrik Klimalpen? Because he kicks our penalties.
Is that your Penaldo take?
Nice.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I think July transfer window signing Patrick Haddad is going to leapfrog everybody. And finish at the top. That's my vote.
I would hope so because that's a lot of incentives for GeoGuessr in.
The sell-on fees.
We will take allocation money.
Yeah.
At GeoGuessr.
So true. So do we have a Patrick vote here?
Yes.
Do we all agree it's gonna be Patrick?
Yeah. Something serious will have to happen.
Let's extend that to
so.
second highest goal scoring though, because I think it's a silly question, but maybe something to it. And do you think we're gonna have another goal threat this year? And if so, from who?
I have a weird one.
Okay.
I think it's CCJ. I think he's gonna score a lot of random goals to get to 8.
It's not even really a weird one because he was second or third highest scorer last year.
I think he's gonna get to 8, but no one else is gonna get to that either.
Also weird because where do we even see him playing in this team when we have all the pieces that we want?
I'm picturing him crashing into the box, late Lampard run.
To that point though, it's paradoxical because whenever he has played further up the field, maybe in hopes of knocking one in, is when he doesn't score. He doesn't score like that. You can't force it. But all right,
I want to go Morgan because I want a good season out of him. I think he's a fun player. Be exciting. So
I'll go Luquinhas just to have variety.
Similar in spirit to the CCJ one, I wanted to go for a Steve Bruce type thing, but I think I would have to say Andres Reyes for that if I want to do that. And since he's hurt, I don't think I can say that about Nealis or Long. So I'm gonna go for Luquinhas as well. I think
the other
be boring. Next question is top assists. Kind of more sporadic since assists can be an odd stat, but honestly, I think Klimala would not be an insane pick here either. He could just beard overall points. Snagger, Luquinhas would seem to be the obvious choice, but I think I'm going to go a little out of the box, and I think I'm going to go with Morgan. I mean, not Morgan, Omir. But Morgan is up there for me. I'm going to go with Omir if he plays, Peaches?
I'll go with Morgan. Especially, I think if he plays wing back, he's going to end up having a lot of men in the box to maybe get across onto. Mm-hmm.
I think Luquinhas, but Morgan, he can, I think, create chances and have the assist opportunity from really wherever he plays on that right side, whether it's wing back or forward or, winger.
Just going last to mix it up, I'll say Coronel. Quarterbacking is gonna spark a few. Maybe that is gonna be a tactical wrinkle this year. You never know. But
that's true.
You got to go first for the next question.
Yeah,
I think
so I can give more boring answers.
Boring answers. So I can give the fun answer.
Next question is: who do you think will have the most minutes? Who's going to be the sort of new Sean Davis, so to speak, Iron Man of the squad? Cork.
I mean, Coronel is the obvious pick, but goalie's kind of a cheat for this category. I'll go ahead and say, I was going to say Sean Nealis, but then there's going to be actual like center back rotation potentially later in this year when Reyes comes back. So that's maybe not a good pick. So I'll say Yearwood.
All right.
I was going to say Yearwood, just because I want him to get all the minutes. But I think it will be Nealis.
I think Yearwood's in such a high intensity position that, that historically he hasn't necessarily gotten all the minutes too. So I'm going to go with John Tolkien. I don't really see.
I was going to go for Tolkien. You've stolen my thunder.
Well, it's like I don't really see too many people playing his position.
Right.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Okay, next one. Breakout player of the year. As always, you can sort of interpret this with whatever wrinkle you want. Sam, you can go first for this one.
Breakout player.
Whether that's a total newbie or someone who was on the squad but might just have a coming out party this year.
I want it to be like the year of Drew Yearwood.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we started to see that toward the end of last season. I want him to really flourish in that role, so he's my pick.
Peaches?
I don't think it's really, is it really a breakthrough necessarily, but I kind of want it to be Klimala in terms of like getting his numbers where we see his talent is.
Yeah. I suppose that sheds light on the fact that sort of anyone who had a really great year this year would sort of be breakout because we were really solid last year. I mean, other than the center backs, I guess, who
or Cornell
really hit. Yeah. But that makes sense. For me, my this is the most hopeful one, I think. But I think Frankie Amaya has the most potential to like just show that like last year was a total, what's the phrase in golf? Mulligan.
Mm-hmm.
But last year was just total mulligan, and that he'll show up as like the player he actually is this year and take people most by surprise.
He was going to be my pick too. I think he ended up being a victim because remember there was that thing last year where Yearwood ended up getting banished to the reserves for like a month or whatever, and it was a thing where he needed to get his fitness back up. I think they probably would have done that with Amaya if they could have afforded to in the late part of the season. Whereas I think now he's obviously had a whole off season and preseason to hit the reset button. So I think he's probably most primed for a big bounce back this year.
Mm-hmm. Next, who do you think the first player to get a red card will be? It's also an option to say that you don't think anyone will get a red card. It does happen sometimes. Rare.
In Denmark.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I actually have to think about this one for a second.
Oh, I did tell you about it earlier.
I know. I know. Now that I'm in it. Okay, I'm gonna go with John Tolkien.
Really?
I think he's mostly been good, but I think there's like a moments of hot-headedness in him that just can boil over.
It'll be for dissent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's by all means a pretty solid tackler. I don't think I've really seen a horror tackle out of him. The worst tackler on the team by far is CCJ, I think, but he usually still doesn't get red cards.
I mean, maybe a midfield yellow card.
Worst tackler is maybe not fair. It's more just kind of the Scholes thing, where I think he just sometimes
hits guys.
Yeah, just doesn't really care. But I don't know if it's going to be CCJ for me. I think it'll be a denial of a goal scoring opportunity. So I think it's going to be a harsh one on one of our center backs, and I'll pick Nealis, and we'll be really pissed about it, but it'll be in enough gray area that we don't complain too much.
I'll say Monzone as like a little learning experience.
I was about to revise mine to Lucas Monzone.
So that's mine.
Well, since Reyes is gone, it makes it a little harder because I feel like he's a shoe-in.
I'm hoping that was a heat sink, though, that he just
Right. Tom Edwards.
Ooh.
I think because it could go either way. If he's playing center back, he could be the denial, the dog so guy, or just by being like, our little, just like thorn in the side, like shit talker, agitator. He could also get into it with the other team.
Here's a nuance though. I feel like it's the shit talkers who don't get the red cards, but the people who get shit talked to who get the red cards.
But he escalates, and then he also gets egged on pretty easily. Yeah. So like it could just spiral.
It's the stoke in him.
Me realize as well that I mean, one thing to keep an eye out for long and just guys up the pitch is who's going to be the guy on the field who sort of is the heat sink and sort of takes charge of talking shit with the ref, but also having an ongoing back and forth with the ref to make sure that no one gets, red carded really abruptly. That was one thing Davis is pretty good at. And we might have to spend some mental energy making sure that's
none of us had Drew Yearwood. I feel like he
I guess he did get a red or two.
Yeah, he got like a couple, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a good shout too, because just contextually where he is on the field, I think there are just a lot of really last ditch.
See, I think it's just, for me, I just assume
we're manifesting a world-class season.
Yeah.
For
Right.
Some,
True.
Who will get more minutes? Jason Pendant or Cameron Harper?
Harper, because as Beach, as you said, Tolkien's playing every minute this season.
I mean, I think it's Harper just because there's more upside to Cameron Harper potentially than playing Jason Pendant.
He'll get thrown in the 80th minute.
Maybe once, but he didn't really get thrown garbage time last year. So,
but I also think Harper, there's going to be, the team's going to be playing with wingers more often, or wide attackers, however you want to describe it this year, which will help him get on the field more.
Hey, maybe he's our wingback.
On paper,
Could be.
Yeah.
On paper, I think there's reason to think it's Harper, but I also think the fact that we're going to be playing with more attackers and have that thing means that there will more often be scenarios where Stuber can put anyone else on or somebody else on, where I think it's more likely for there to be scenarios where he's like, well, shit, I have to put a left back on, and Monson's not available for some reason. Jason Pendant go get 20 minutes, and that happens like 3 or 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be all it takes. We'll see though. And then final one.
That's only league minutes, or is that like overall?
I don't know.
Okay.
US
Open Cup is back, is all I'm saying.
Of the prop bets.
Inter-Toto Cup minutes.
Of our prop bets, then we'll move on to, I think, questions from Twitter. Over or under 1.5 games, 1.5 for games where we are forced by coin flip to attack the South Ward first, instead of our usual choice of attacking it in the second half.
Under.
You think under? You think it's just going to be when New England?
It's going to be the one time New England comes. That's it.
So yeah, this is predicated on New England coming, but I think maybe other teams might catch on. So I think I'm going to go an over.
Okay. I'll go an under because I think we're just going to win coin toss all the time. Yeah, we're just going to be mint on that.
I'm going under as well. I think we're going to get the ball and we're going to score because we're going to win the coin toss every single time. As Cork said, yeah.
That's how it worked in Uncut Gems.
That's 0.5 to the 34th power. That's a very small number, which I believe in us. We can do it. Then we did solicit some questions on Twitter, and we got some wonderful ones. Some of them I think we've addressed in stride, but were very good questions. So I will acknowledge them briefly. Just to throw a shout out. I mean, first, I think Ed Ritter asked us, 3 in the back or 4, or is it completely dependent on Reyes' return? Or, will we go back and forth? I think we've talked about this a bit. I think that we see, that right back position pushing forward and Tolkien being sort of more the distributor from the left. We expect Monson to play in some form this year, but so far it sounds like most of the lineups have been 4 in the back. And then Ed also asked, where will left back depth come from? I think it sounds like we think Monson will be a part of that. We also got a question asking who sits next to Drew in midfield from Leo, RBNY Leo 10. I think we've talked about that in depth in the midfield section.
When you said sits next to, I thought it was going to be like, who sits next to 202 and 202?
He also asked, will Ryan Meyer get game time? I think only...
Open Cup's back.
Open Cup, baby.
I think only from an act of God in the, regular season. I think Cornell gets every minute otherwise.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Merrill got a cup tournament before. Like, if we have...
Okay, Open Cup, sure, maybe. Open Cup is back on. Leo asks, can we challenge for Open Cup? I say, yeah, why not?
Yes.
I can challenge for every cup.
Any cup, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. How many trophies are we eligible for this year? League,
Supporter
Cup,
Shield.
Open Cup,
Are we in Superliga? What's it called?
Leagues Cup.
Leagues Cup? Are
Leagues
we in
Cup.
that?
Can't fucking remember.
Isn't
Liga
everyone in
2.
that? Everyone's in Leagues Cup.
Well, aren't the CCL teams not in Leagues Cup?
Leagues Cup is going to become a big thing that they're going to take the league off for a month for next year.
Next
Okay.
year? Oh, I thought it was
But I
this
think
year.
it might just be a limited thing this year.
It's
I
still
don't know.
4th through 6th or whatever this year, whatever. Yeah.
Leo also asked just how optimistic are you about the season? That will be our final question to sum up our episode. We also asked in this tweet if you want us to do any accents this year, any bad accents. Brian1316 said he wants to hear some high-level butchering of Portuguese. Brian, I'm trying. There might be some times where it's a bit dodgy. I think I might have to inhabit the persona of Andre Villas-Boas in order to make it sort of more palatable and okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I am committed, Brian. I'm going to do it. Brian also asked, curious about defensive depth. Good question. Thank you. And another question about optimism. Is optimism before a season starts as bad as some people make it out to be? No, of course not. Why would that be bad? But I respect the question.
You know what? I'm not
Brian.
even optimistic about the season. I'm just like excited about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not bad, Brian. Thank you for the question. I like seeing my boys play on the field. Soccer, it's my favorite sport. I like when they dribble the ball up and down the pitch.
That's
Yeah.
right. If I'm optimistic about, kind of along the lines of what Peach has just said, if I'm optimistic about anything this year, it's that it's going to be the most normal season by far.
In a while.
In a while. Because even last year, especially towards the playoffs that we won't go into too much detail about, kind of had the fakeness come out and just the general like lack of ability for each team to, kind of make an honest go of it. So I think, weird little janky preseason notwithstanding, I think we're going to have a full normal season without as many variables this year for the first time.
Yeah, and
since 2019.
To go to bat for you a little bit, Cork, here, I think there is like this nuance to like what it is to look positively into the next season. Like we talked about this last episode a little bit, but and I think for us, like having positivity going into the next season isn't that we're saying, hey, we're gonna win every game next season, even though like we want to carry that energy into next season. It's more
obviously
that
we will.
Yeah, I mean we will, obviously, of course. But like it's also just that, hey, it looks like there's gonna be a high ceiling, and it's exciting to see how much of that potential we can meet this season.
Right.
And like to talk about that instead of prescribing us to abject failure ahead of time is, which is already a fruitless kind of thought exercise. It's much more I think fulfilling and engaging to look at what the heights could be and to see how we'll reach what we can or what we'll develop and how plans go and they don't go. And that kind of like organic randomness is part of like what makes the season exciting anyway. So, I think to everyone out there who is doubting, whatever, I don't care.
That's right.
BMS asks, can Brit and Cork do a conversation of Drew and Tom welcoming Lewis to the team? I think this we're gonna have to do some acting sessions. I think we're gonna have to dwell on that for a week, work on training, and we can get back to you on BMS, and really deliver a high class performance. Pat, soon to be top scorer for New York Red Bulls, Pat Haddad asks, if each of the four of you had to be a Central Asian republic, which would you be?
I think that's a trick question. It's all the Soviet Union.
Well, yeah, but they have constituent, Soviet republic. It's
the republics
union,
within
the union of
republics.
socialist Soviet
Yeah.
republics. You buffoon.
Okay,
you fool.
okay, fine. It's Uzbek. I'm probably more Uzbek.
All right.
Just to clarify, he's going to be our second goal scorer.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. RBNY's first goal scorer because he's going to be transferred before he can become the top goal scorer for GeoGuessr.
He's going to be second for both GeoGuessr and
Red
RBNY.
Bull.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
Because he's back up to Clement.
No, he's going to take the penalties after he transfers.
Sure, whatever.
so.
Which Central Asian republic?
I didn't do my homework.
I'm Mongolia.
Oh.
Does that count?
It does.
Does it?
I decided it counts.
You know what? I accept it.
They use Cyrillic script.
Cyrillic alphabet, yeah.
No, okay.
And I've watched Mongolian Premier League soccer before.
You know, as someone who's descended from Mongolians,
join the fucking club.
Yeah, exactly. It's only a quarter of all people or whatever, you know.
I think Mongolia picked the USSR in the split, didn't it? So I think that counts. I'm going with Kyrgyzstan. Love me some Kyrgyzstan.
Kyrgyzstan really, was my second choice.
Really, big mountains, big mentality. Kyrgyzstan.
Although Kazakhstan does have the best tourism commercials of the lot.
It's the big sky country of Asia.
Exactly.
I always like to say.
Yeah, as they always say. Thank you, Pat, for your question. And then I think to segue us into our final question, I'm gonna pull from at Mr. Schwang, who has asked us, good vibes only. What are our strengths this season? What areas of the field will be our strongest this season? And how many goals will Barlow score this season? Be overly optimistic with this one. I do like the Barlow question actually as its own thing, but I think we've touched on these before, but I think it's a good one to return to as we move towards sort of our general prognosis of the season. I also think that Tom Barlow will score 4 goals this season.
That's a good number.
Yeah.
But he's going to score 10.
Oh, come on.
All off the bench.
Well, you know, I'd love to see it.
Super sub Tom Barlow.
I'll say 6.
All right.
I wish. I don't know. I'd maybe 4.
4 is a good number.
I think he's gonna have more assists and goals, but yeah, I was being overly optimistic per the prompt.
True. So what are, maybe we can incorporate this into our final question, which I think the way that we're going to give our prognosis for this is sort of think of it as like an interquartile range. You say like, what is our, instead of just saying what place we're going to have in the standings, you know, what does the best case scenario for the season look like? And what is the worst case scenario for this season looks like? So I can go first, I think. I think our best case scenario for this season, if things really go well, I think is we're a serious contender for the Shield, the Cup. We're a serious contender in the league, I think, if things go well. We said this last season. Obviously, it didn't come true. Although, as we said at the end of last season, looking at the table, it bizarrely, as mediocre and difficult as it was, only a couple points off from being literally second place. I think the fundamentals of the league are very similar to last season, where the rest of the table, the rest of the league does not look very strong. Really, I think having Bruce Arena's Toronto, New England being the tentpole team is the only team I'm really that scared about, and I think that they will suffer a little bit from being able to feast a little bit less.
I mean, they already lost momentum by the end of last season.
Yeah. As listeners will know, we're not scared of City at all. And I think that Bradley's Toronto thing will take a second to take off if it ever does. So I think the seeds are definitely there for us to take advantage of the league by just simply having a coherent system that guys can plug into. I think if we can get more dynamic going forward, a realistic expectation is to be, I don't know, second, I think, this year in the conference or in the Shield, because, you know, maybe we have a little bit we can improve on going forward, but think of it as in quartile range, I think second. I think the worst case for this season, I think, remains basically where we were last season, about 7th place. Because I do think that last season kind of was a worst case scenario. Like, I don't think we plausibly could have done much worse than last season. We bottomed out for about 2 months straight in the middle of the summer, recovered, and then grinded out to 7th place, exactly mid-table. You know, at times I thought it would get worse, but looking how the rest of the team or the league went, I don't think it really realistically can get worse than that. So I think 2nd to 7th is really our range. I think that we can qualify for Champions League, even as Champions League means less and less, unfortunately. I think our strength clearly is our back line, and our defensive strength, particularly our goalkeeper. And I think, especially if Reyes gets back there, just that combo of Reyes, Long, and Nealis in our spine, I think is a huge strength. And I'm excited for the potential of, you know, all these different tools that we've added to our front three, taking teams by surprise and teams not knowing how to prep for us and having to rapidly cram in all of the film every week because they don't know what really to expect based on last year. So I think 7th, realistically. I mean, 2nd, and maybe 2nd through 4th is a realistic, optimistic range for us this year. And I do think it's not out of the question for us to really go and can win the whole league.
I mean, I think it's hard to argue against like what you said as our ceiling and our floor, and like realistic where we can end up, especially given how we ended up last season. We were also very unlucky last season, which is part of, I think why we got the feeling that we bottomed out. The things that could have gone our way most often did not in the first half of that season. So yeah, man, like our team seems better. There's more time. There's less of a leash on what we can expect a learning period to be, I think, from our perspective. So I'm expecting us to be better. And yeah, I think like every trophy we're in, we're eligible to win. And if we're below our floor at 7th, that's a major issue on this team. Major big issue.
I tried to anticipate what would be the reasons for the worst case scenario. But to be honest, for me, if we're below playoff spots, I struggle to even imagine why that would be.
Yeah, at this point, and if it just happens to go that way, then yeah, it's like it's over.
I guess catastrophic injuries.
But even that, it's just like we should have prepared for that then too, somehow.
We have much more redundancy than we did last year.
Yeah,
already. Which I think extends to the coaching staff too. The fact that we have a former 2nd division, head coach on staff we brought in to kind of bolster it instead of everyone just being linked to our top guy also makes me a little bit more optimistic. Maybe if Struber gets a red card, we will see Troy Listen on the touchline this year.
Yeah, hard to, I don't know, add any nuance to that. What I'm happy about is that we invested a lot in our defense over the last season, and we're able to, brace injuries. We managed without Long. I think we're gonna manage without Reyes. We brought back a lot of the key pieces, and everybody is a young player, so they're just going to continue to get better over time. So there isn't like a diminishing return to any of our players, which I think is just a strength of how we have brought in people to this club. The concerns that I had at the end of last year was just about how do we connect the defense and the deeper midfield with our attack. And I think that we have options. I think it's just a matter of putting the right pieces together and getting that started. So I think we'll have a slow start to the season. I don't really know if we're going to come out guns blazing. I think we have to just tweak a few things and wait for players to come in and get settled. I think that if we don't click and if Klimala stalls, I don't know if we can sustain that kind of 1-0 result for a very, we can't, I don't know if we can always keep that up. We're going to need to score more goals. And if we don't do that, I think that we fall into that 7th spot in that lower range. But if we do click, if we do get that offensive support, if we are as dangerous as we think we will be with Morgan, Luquinhas and Klimala up top, then yeah, we're top 3 team in the East. Mm-hmm. I don't see any reason for us not to be. So I think it really just depends on how we click and how we I think get all the pieces together, because I think they're there. I think we did make the right decisions and build on the roster. So I'm excited about that. And to answer Haddad's question from before, Turkmenistan.
Oh, did you do?
Finally came.
Well, okay. So I want to go the gates of hell is like this. It's just like open flame gas pit just in the middle of the desert. I wanted to always go there.
It's like Centralia, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go.
I think I saw that in the music video once.
Right on. I guess because I don't really differ too much from the takes that you guys just put out, but I think, and again, not to add like a tangent while we're wrapping things up here, but I think as far as worst case scenario, I think if we do. And again, obviously we have to wait and see what the context is of whether it is catastrophic injuries like we had last year or some sort of other act of God. But I think you do kind of have to ask the question that if we are sort of, treading around like 6th or 7th, or God forbid, we're out of the playoff picture for a large chunk like we were last year, I think you do kind of have to start asking some questions, which, we like to resist asking questions of the regime. But I think if we have another season like last year, I think what Brit said is true, where it's just kind of like, how is that even possible? And then once you've processed that, you have to kind of say, maybe it's time for another reshuffling of the deck.
I think that's when you have to start wondering if Struber is best at keeping teams up rather than pushing them forward. I think that becomes fair play.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I want to bring this back to positivity at the end of this. And just like real quick, what would make this season a success for you?
Well, okay, so I don't remember what the current qualification for CCL thing is, but in the past, that's been a decent proxy for a good season. Either winning one of the cups or basically finishing first in the conference. I think top 3, and then I think, unless they massively improve in a way I don't expect, like I think my benchmark, my waterline teams are probably like Nashville and Atlanta. I think last year, when they made playoffs, or I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. They're just kind of hanging around. They're doing all right. Like Nashville in particular, very solid squad, but it was very much a squad that I expected if we got our shit together, we should be able to have our way with them.
Which we did pretty much every time we played them.
Well, we kind of squared off and had a nice...
It was very tactical matches, but
I think I would expect us to start beating those teams. And I think a really big key factor in the season, I think it would go a very long way if at some point, at least in the first half of the season, we can just have a stretch of games where it doesn't even have to be the most dominant thing ever. But if we can just go a couple games where we're not gritting our teeth until the last second, that could go a long way. Whereas I think the fatigue of grinding out over a summer and trying to fight every single minute for every point got to us last year. That could be a version of the worst case scenarios if we find ourselves grinding from the get-go for 6 months and maybe the floor just falls out a bit. I would love it if we could continue a little bit more of what we had last May instead, when we beat Chicago 2-0, when we beat Toronto 2-0, and the last 30 to 40 minutes of that game were kind of just cruising. It would go so far if we could just have a couple games like that at the beginning of the season where we get cruising. That way you can also start getting teams maybe lower down the table who come into RBA thinking, we're probably going to lose. And they pack it in at halftime or something. That is something that could be very iterative and just kind of snowball into making our lives easier. So, and that to that point, I would kind of hope that we can rack up some wins at the beginning of the season. It would be great to rack up some of these more lower stakes wins, I guess, against like San Jose this weekend too. Just get that on the board and make it a little easier on our...
So your answer is top 3 in the East and to be intimidating at home.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot the little prompt. Top 3, yeah.
Yeah.
My ultimate goal for the season is Eileen Gu Red Bull collabo at the arena.
That would be sick.
Fuck.
Damn. That would be a successful season for you.
Yeah,
I agree.
I'd be in the parking lot going, Goo! How'd she get so good? Goo!
Sam?
Top 3 beating teams at home. I don't know, fix some of the success for the season. I think get rid of some of the just like corny shit that they do at the stadium too. I don't know, bring back the experience. I don't know.
You say this on the day they announced Star Wars.
Well... Yeah,
I'm sorry. I don't want to open that
maybe
can
it's
of
a
worms.
last week. Maybe it was like a... But yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, maybe to dovetail with the point that this might be a more regular season.
Yeah, totally.
Like, hopefully we can get some mojo back in the building because everything was off last year.
Bring back the vibes, the good vibes.
Yeah, the vibes are off in the stadium. I agree with that. That's the success for me this season. It's twofold. Is that I want us to host multiple playoff games. I think that's a successful season for me, and which probably means like 3rd or 2nd, right? So I'm probably around where you are, as well as bring the vibes back to the stadium. Vibes are off. We need good vibes this year.
Not the vibes. All right. Well, the preseason episode is always a longer one, as you expect. Rebels going to be playing on Saturday in San Jose. I guess, are we going to be like... We haven't discussed. Maybe we'll stream during this. We'll check Twitter to see if we're going to do it. Decision to TBD. But the 2022 season is upon us, friends. Are you ready? Because it's happening. The Red.
It's Alex!